Hi, I'm Chantra Powell, and I'm the Proven Not Perfect podcast host and a best-selling author on Amazon. Do any of these words call out to you? Drive, ambition, doing, leading, creating. These words call many of us, and sometimes to heroic impact. This is all good until we forget about our own self and our own self needs, mainly care. My Village of All-Stars, they not only command position, but they command influence. Well, there's always a backstory. I myself, Chantra Powell, have had to put myself on the sideline a few times, but I'm still in the game. I'm staying in the game. The only thing different about me is that I'm proven not perfect. Enjoy. Hey, Proven Not Perfect. This is Chantra Powell, your podcast host. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing well. Hey, look, I want to ask you guys something. So I tend to go with these long form podcasts, and sometimes it can be a whole hour. Sometimes it can be a little bit more. And I love it because if you know, I am more free form, organic, in conversation. What you hear between me and my guests is completely unscripted. I'm talking reality TV style, although actually sometimes that feels like it's scripted. So I'm not even going to say that. This is like for real, unscripted, meaning I've been inspired to have a conversation and I'm inspired about a topic. And 9 times out of 10, the actual topic conversation is a little bit different, but I tell you what, they're always 100% real, 100% real. And one of my favorite things is before I post any of my podcasts, I listen to it, not to edit it, because if you're listening to my podcast, one of the things you are probably hearing is that I do not edit it. I just do not. I just don't. And that's it. And if you when I listen to it, I get reminded of the experience that I had having the conversation, and smile just comes to my face and all around my body. But then the other thing is I get excited, so excited to put it out there at that point, because I'm like, this person needs to be heard. This conversation needs to be listened to. These nuggets need to be shared. This inspiration is going to bless someone's soul. And to the glory of God, that is the reason for Proven Not Perfect. I tell you what, I talk about it earlier on in the podcast series. I started this podcast after realizing that my motivators were way on tilt. I was so focused on the achievement and too little focused on what it felt like in the process. And that needed to flip. It needed to flip for me. It needed to flip for my family. And I'm so grateful now to still probably do all the things, probably even more of the things, but I am so attuned to who I am showing up as, what I'm leaving behind, what I'm receiving in the moment myself, and how I'm evolving at that very moment. Because I've come to appreciate that life is absolutely about change, and it's change every single second, every single new breath that we take in. And if you really, really double click and think about that for a moment, it really holds you accountable for choosing that next breath, that next step to be the best one that you have the ability to make at that time. But it also holds up a mirror and says, what are you carrying with you that you needed to let go? Do you hear me? What are you carrying with you that you need to let go? Because if you truly believe life is living and changing at all times, then we can choose to be our best at all times. With every next breath, every next step. It is never too late. And the Bible tells us that, right? But it also says that we gotta let some stuff go. And whatever that last breath was, whatever that last step was that wasn't quite what we wanted it to be, let it go. It is in this place that you can find center and you can find peace. And that's what I want to share with you today. So today's episode is with Lisa Kahn-Allen. Back to the scheduled programming. You're going to love her. You're going to love her soul. I'm not kidding you. You're going to love her soul. And when you listen to this podcast and stick around till the better end, you are going to hear her take us to church. When I say I listened to this podcast just now and I literally yelled out in my living room, "Preach, Lisa." For real, I did. For real. I texted her and told her that. So enjoy the podcast. Let me know on social media how you're enjoying it. You can find me on Facebook. You can find Chantrapal. You can find me on Instagram, Chantrapal_proven not perfect or proven not perfect. Either one works. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Chantrapal, and you can email me at provennotperfect.com. Those are all the ways, right? DM me. I just want to hear from you. I want to hear if you like the long form. If you don't, I want to hear if you want more than once a month or if you want I guess no less. I guess no less. Because if you tell me you want less than once a month, then at that point, I'm about to tell you to change the channel. All right. I'm wishing you all love. Enjoy. Proven Not Perfect. And this is my conversation with Lisa Kahn-Allen. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Oh my God, you look beautiful as usual.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yes. Now, in podcast land, it just may be Monday or any other day that somebody's listening to that, but it doesn't matter because whoever's listening will know that the vibes that are coming together right now are Friday vibes.
Yes, they are.
That's electric. It's Friday vibes. So no matter what day it is for you, just think about the Friday vibes. I'm so excited that you're in this space with me, Lisa, from meeting you. So I often like to sort of roll the tape back and think about my guest and how I met them and the impression that they left me with or made upon me. And for me, you and I were both at an annual business meeting for the local Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
We just happened to be sitting at the same table, probably drawn to the same people, but we didn't know each other. And you just had such a presence about yourself. Just a joyful, okay, so here are the words. What are the words in my mind? You had like a joyful, creative spirit. That's what I felt. Yes.
Thank you. What a lovely thing to tell me. I appreciate that. Thank you. Really honored to be here with you today, honestly, because when I first met you, you're electric. Like there's just something about you that is so vibrant that I just couldn't wait to get to know you better. So really to be in space with you too.
All right. So everybody knows this is like Girl Fest Girl Gang going on. And this is a treat because so you started a business. I don't know how long ago, but it is 2000. You started Kahn Interior Design.
Yep. Kahn Design Group was what we called it in its first iteration. Absolutely.
So I want to go all the way back before we go all the way forward. And I want to understand this joyful creative that made this first impression on me. How did you come to be who you are today?
Such a beautiful question. You know, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My dad owned a business that we all worked in when I was growing up. And one of the aspects of that business was interior design. They also had retail stores and did other things. My mom is a designer as well. And so I grew up kind of doing this with her. And it was a very natural thing for me to want to continue, in that legacy, really. And, my mom created the most beautiful spaces for us when we were growing up. And it was just always our home was always a very nurturing, nourishing sort of a place to spend time. Everybody always wanted to come over when I was a little girl. Like it was just one of those things. And my dad really taught me the business end. And so I knew when I went to design school that I would want to open a business of my own at some point. And so when I hit 2000, that was the year. Just all the stars aligned. I had worked for a builder in Naples for a few years after I moved here, so I could kind of learn, the market, learn the building process. That was not something that was part of the kind of design we did back in Ohio, where I grew up. So, I had some learning to do, but it just has been the most joyful path of self-exploration that I can possibly describe to you. Like, I just really have found myself along the way of owning my own business. It's been big.
Wow. So there's so much there. So I wanted you to help us to understand a little bit about growing up in a household with parents who were entrepreneurial. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Having dipped the water a little bit myself as an entrepreneur, it is all consuming. And I would imagine for the product, the children in that family, you're probably receiving some really interesting messages early on because, my kids happened to be a bit older when we did, our entrepreneurial venture. But I know they still got some things, right? They still got
Of
some.
course. Of
I
course.
so what did you see? Like what were the things that made you say, I'm drawn to that? And what were the things that you sort of were like, I don't know if I would ever want to do that?
Well, it is all consuming. I mean, there's no doubt. And, one of the things that I grew up understanding is that, you know, when you own your own business, the health of that business, the wellness and well-being of that business, really, it's a family member. And so that gets as much play as anybody else in the family. And it really, that business sits at the dinner table every night. You
Yep.
sleep with it all the time. Like, it is really part of living and breathing. And my mom really understood that. And she worked in the business too. And so when my dad would work really long hours and he would work weekends and all those sorts of things, they just had a really beautiful partnership where they would then, whoever was there and able to, would cover, school events and other things we were doing, and, be there to monitor all the other activities that go along with a busy family of, 3 kids. So it really, I think that entrepreneurship is like a fire. It's like a fire inside you, and it's something you either have or you don't. And it really takes a dedication that goes far beyond, a 40-hour work week. It is a constant companion. And you're either drawn to that and you want to commit to something like that, or you just really don't. And I did early on. And it's funny because having all of us work in the business together, my parents had one of those old fashioned wood paneled station wagons. You remember those back in
Oh,
the
I
day?
love that. I'm picturing
Totally.
Brady
And
Bunch.
so, yeah. And on summer days, when we were off of school, all 5 of us would pile into that station wagon. We would drive to the business. We would all work there all day together. And then we'd pile in that station wagon and drive home and all have dinner together. So, there's also a really particular dynamic that goes along with not just starting a business, but a family business where everybody works together. And how do you navigate, those issues, and how do you have enough of the business, but yet when to shut it off so that there can also be family time and people don't get burned out, and how do you really navigate all of that, because it's very possible, and those working with your family members can be, when it is in balance and it's a good harmony really, so powerful, because no one else will care as much as your other family members, right? And really take it on as much. And so I went from being part of a family business to owning a family business of my own, because my husband Philip works with me here. My kids have worked with me here at different points. And so, yeah, it's good.
Wow, I love that. So, all right, so let's take this a little step further and talk a little bit about being a woman,
Mhm.
starting a business, in an area that you're relatively new to. Back when you got
Mhm.
here and decided that you'd invest in this way.
Yeah.
What was your journey like as a female entrepreneur?
You know, it was an interesting one. When I first started the business, for the first maybe 5 years, the business existed as a subsidiary of my family's business, of my father's business. And so I had that support system going in. And so when I wrote my initial business plan and submitted it to my dad and said, this is what I really want to do, and my mom, and I said, would you guys be willing to give me some seed money to get started? I'll pay it back. And I really had a support system there from them, and that made a huge difference. And also, the Small Business Association is an incredibly powerful organization. And somebody put me in touch with them. I can't remember who. And they stepped in and really helped me at different points. And they have, through FGCU, some free services that I had access to as a minority owned business that, I don't know if all businesses do, but it really helped me learn how to read my financial figures and other things that you don't necessarily come into owning a business knowing as a designer. So that was really big for me. I will say that, interior design in the way that I do it, it has a lot of building involved with it. The building industry is a very masculine dominated industry.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. I'm seeing a lot more women. It always makes me so happy when I'm out on a job site and I see like women plumbers and I see, women, spackling drywall and painting. It makes me glad. We need more women out in the workforces, but it is a very interesting dynamic because you have to learn how to handle yourself in various situations and be able to carry enough confidence and enough assurance and be able to set boundaries in ways that allow you to move in various circles, everything from the very creative, soft, feminine things that we do to the very, much more specific execution building aspects of our business where we're meeting with trades and we're out on the job sites. And it's just, we have to navigate a lot of different things because of the nature of this business, but I enjoy that. It keeps it fresh. It's not boring.
I think that's really, really smart what you said, because, yes, we are seeing women in spaces and places where we were not traditionally, right?
Yeah.
Even in my corporate journey, many of my experiences, especially growing on the industrial manufacturing businesses,
Yeah.
very few and far between
Yeah.
seeing, women colleagues. But now that's increasing. But, it's funny because as much as we talk about these spaces and places that were not traditionally for women, I find that some of the people that have helped me to understand how to be successful the most have looked exactly the opposite of me, right? They've been white men in some instances, many instances.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know what that says other than, if you can show up as your authentic self,
Yeah.
ready to understand the place and space where you are,
Uh-huh.
there's highly likely someone who's going to have a heart to teach and mentor, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it takes a willingness and a give on both parts, right?
It does.
Um, an acknowledgement that you might be different in the space and place,
Mm-hmm.
but a determination to learn,
Yeah.
and being maybe the majority in the space and place, but recognizing there's value in different viewpoints, right? It takes both.
Absolutely. It
Um,
does.
yeah, that's
It
so.
does. I love that you pointed that out, and you're right. And I think it is showing up open. It's asking a lot of questions and it's being humble enough to know that you might not know. And really, it's hard to resist, I find, somebody who just comes in with no ego and just is like, please show me. I don't get it. So show me because I want to know.
That's right on. Well, I
Mhm.
think we just gave a clue
Mhm.
to our women who are up and coming in their own careers. And, we are in interesting times and we all do have our strong opinions about various things. But one of the strategies that I think is time tested and true is humility and a genuine curiosity. And if you try it, if you so dare to try it, I believe what you said is really true. There are
Yeah.
very few people who can resist a
Mhm.
one-on-one genuine humility
Yeah.
and desire. Not saying it doesn't, there will be spaces and places where no matter how you show up, it might not be your fit. But I've also learned, and I'd be curious about you, but I've also learned if that's the case, then it's actually not my fit. And you know
Mhm.
what I got to do? I got to go. I got
Yeah,
to go.
exactly.
That's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about design in the sense of what you think has shifted since 2020. And here's why I'm thinking about that, because I feel pre 2020, we all had a different relationship, for sure, me with my house, totally
Yeah,
different.
absolutely.
And 2020 really, first of all, it had me in my house more than in 1 year, probably longer than I'd ever, been in it for one period of
Totally.
time
All of us.
in
Mhm.
life, right? But it also really encouraged me to think differently about maybe historical norms around what a room should be, and what a room should say, right? What my needs were. And it's so funny, if I invited you in now, you're like, well, I think this is a living room, but she's got a Peloton over there and she's got a massive table over here and a sitting room. Like, I just think so differently around it now.
Yeah.
What is that, like a thing? Like, are people thinking about interior design a little bit different post 2020, or am I completely out the water?
No, you're completely spot on, honestly, because there all of our relationships with our living spaces and our working spaces changed forever through
Mm,
the pandemic. It just really did, because you're right. We all spent time in our homes, unprecedented amounts of time in our homes. And I think that we got to see very quickly what works and what doesn't work. We got to see that flexible spaces are really the name of the game, because you just never know. Does your dining room need to be a dining room, or does it need to be a makeshift schoolroom? Maybe
yeah.
it needs to be a Zoom theater for a board meeting. It really could be any number of things. And I find myself as a designer designing differently, because we want to make sure that we're designing spaces that are nimble, spaces that can shift, spaces that can accommodate
Wow.
various things. And it's, do we have enough storage to be able to have, like in a dining room, so that we could have trays of things where we're switching, okay, now we're school, so we grab out school trays and we put them down and everybody can show up and do their homework and do their things. Now we're going to put those away and we're going to get out trays of things for dinner, because we're all going to eat together. And, it really, excuse me, it's that sort of thing. But, there's a bigger story there. And I wonder if you might let me share with you
Please.
something that is on an even deeper level. So 2020 was an absolutely fascinating time for all of us. And it brought to light something that had come through for me in 2010, if you can believe that. So 10 years later, a great truth that had come to me in 2010 really came to bear. And it's this. So in 2010, my daughter was 10 at the time, and she is on the autism spectrum. She has many different issues and things. And that was the year that she started having seizures.
Oh.
Out of the blue. They just started happening at night. And I will tell you, as a mother, it was probably the most terrifying time of my life. That first year, really learning to cope with those. Every time your child has a seizure in the beginning, you're sure they're going to die. Like, it is such a deep and frightening time. I just can't even tell you. And they all happened, of course, at night. So she would wake me up in the middle of sleeping, and you're just jolted into this space of a complete kind of freak out. And now what am I going to do? And in the beginning, there were hospitals involved. And then as we got medication, we started to learn to deal with them at home, but it was still terrifying nonetheless. And then really trying to understand what was happening with her and why these things were happening. But as that was percolating here, I was also going through a time in my business that was very, I don't know, we all go through burnout sometimes. And this was really a time of deep burnout for me. And I was divorcing my daughter's father. So there were all these things that were happening. And I was just at one of those moments, Shanta, and I know we've all had them, where you're just like, this is my dark night of the soul. Like, I do not know where to turn, right?
Yes.
Something has to give. that was just what I was thinking in my mind. I was out taking an early morning walk. It was still dark. I was having my dog with me. We were walking around the lake behind my house, and I was standing on a bridge. I just paused for a moment because the sun was starting to come up like over the trees. And I just stopped for a moment, very caught in my own suffering at that time, right? I'm just thinking, gosh, something's got to give, because if it doesn't give, something's going to break. Like I don't know how much more I can take. Send me a sign. Send me a sign.
Oh,
At
geez.
that moment, the wind, sorry, it's emotional, picked up.
Don't be
It
sorry.
blew right down the lake. And as that rosy glow was coming up, my hair was long. It lifted the ends of my hair. I had goosebumps like head to toe. And on the wind was whispered the word sanctuary. Isn't that the most beautiful word? I was just like, what? That is what I need. I need sanctuary. Chloe, my daughter, needs sanctuary. She needs a safe place where she's not going to hurt herself, where we can all recover, right? Where we can all deal with all of these things that are going on right now. I need a sanctuary. And so I walked my dog home, and I thought, what a moment. Have that word come to me in that way, right? From God's lips to my
Thank
ears.
God.
Why have I been charged with this amazing word? And what does it even mean? And so I really sat with that, and I got out my journal, made an extra cup of coffee, and I just started like writing. What a beautiful word. Why did this come to me? And I spent the next years really unpacking what that is. And I started by making a sanctuary for Chloe in our house, because honestly, not only was her physical safety in danger when she would have these seizures, but mood disorders often come with seizures. And so it would activate really negative and unhappy behavior in her. She started being mean to the pets. She was mean to our other family members. Like, she just was not her best self. And she needed a zone where she could regulate her emotions, get some of that frustration out, and then bring a nicer version of herself back out into the family space. And we were all really riding this roller coaster of unhappiness with her. And as I created that space for her, I really thought about it. Like, what would a sanctuary look like for her? You know, we take in our spaces through our senses, right? So what is it going to look like? Beauty matters. She needs to see things that are familiar to her. Sound matters. What is she hearing when she's in this space? So we made sure that she had access to really calming, beautiful music. What is she smelling? We added aromatherapy. You know, what is she touching and feeling? I put a big, thick plush carpet in there, so when she would fall down, she wouldn't hurt herself. We moved everything down to ground level, so there wasn't so far to fall. You know, I just really thought about all of these things, the softest, yummiest blankets for her to cuddle up with, big, comfy throw pillows that she could just beat up when she was feeling frustrated and scream into if she needed to, but also sit on them and watch a program on TV, a karaoke machine, so she could dance in her mirror and laugh and find happy things too. Like, I really thought about all of that, and I created within her room a toolbox for her to be able to have everything that she could need to kind of bring herself back to center, to go from that outward frustrated focus to that inward focus where she could kind of get back to that more grounded, you know, centered, harmonious place. And it worked so beautifully. The entire tenor of our family changed. And I thought, you know, she's not the only one that needs a sanctuary. Honestly, I need one. It's not always easy to be her mom, owning this business, running all the things that I do. I need a space where I can get back to myself. And, you know, so does my son. So does my husband. You know, he's a musician. And so really, I wanted him to have a special place for that too. And so I systematically worked through the house and created sanctuary for everyone. And I will tell you that our family life transformed into this beautiful dynamic that just was supportive for everyone. And I loved it so much that I hired a business coach. I took this idea to her, and she's like, Lisa, this is so beautiful. This has to be the message for your design firm. You need to talk about sanctuary, but you have to live it. And so that's really what I was doing at home. So I turned the house into a lab, our sanctuary lab. And so we just tried everything. We tried all kinds of products and scents and layouts and things. And I did the same thing at our design studio. And I talked to my team about it. And we really started working these elements of sanctuary into all the projects that we were doing. And, it's funny because in retrospect, I had been doing that already. I just didn't have the vernacular. I
Oh my
lacked
God.
vocabulary to talk about it. And so all
Lisa,
the
because it's always right there.
right. And I
Whatever
was
it
like,
is,
this
it's
is
always
so
right there.
it is. And I realized that if you could just fast forward, I know I'm going to sound like Miss Congeniality here for a second, but if you could fast forward and think if everyone could have a space of sanctuary for themselves, a place where they could go and hide when they need to, heal when they need to, recharge their batteries. It's a battery pack for your soul, right? Where do you go and you plug in and you kind of level back up? Imagine what the world would be like if that was true. Imagine what we would be watching on television, the different experience we would have just driving down the road, running into people in grocery stores. Like it just would be so different. I'm convinced of it. And so that really is my work in the world, is to see how much I can only create so many sanctuaries because I'm one designer with a team, but putting this truth together is my next move.
But Lisa, can't you scale? Okay, so oh my God, so much there, and you've triggered the business thinker in me. I'm telling you what. So yes, you are one designer and your business and all that, and it's a high touch business. But what I'm receiving is so much bigger than just interior design.
Oh, it is
It's
so much
life
bigger, Sean.
design.
That's it exactly. It's a life philosophy sanctuary. It really
Yes.
it's a lens that you can view the entire world through. And it really makes you reconsider everything from the way you treat your body to the food you eat, to the way you spend your money, to the way you spend your time and who you surround yourself with. Like it really is, it's a whole thing. And I
Because
know.
it's a pivot from historical viewpoints, right? Because there was a time where we would be considered incredibly selfish, maybe even bordering on a narcissistic tendency to think that every space and place needed to feel like a sanctuary for us, right? But I think that in particularly now that the world has gotten so loud and
Yes.
so fast paced that even baby girl Chloe and her navigation of this condition, I feel like so much of us are being propelled into these ways of trying to slow things down, that many of the same principles that saved her, so many people that we see every day at the grocery store and on the road need.
They do. They do. It's profound.
Yeah.
And so, just to fast forward to the question that you asked me, which is how have our spaces and the way we look at our spaces changed? So, I work on that for 10 years, right? 2020 hits. And all of a sudden, I look around and I said to my husband, Philip, it's now. Sanctuary's now.
Wow.
It has to be now. And so we started writing the blog every week when we can, every other week when we, and
where do we all go read this? Okay, this
I
is,
so appreciate that.
where do we read
So our blog
sanctuary.com or what is it?
Our blog is called Finding Sanctuary, and it actually resides on my design website, which is at lisakahn.designs.com. So it's right there. And, I love the writing that we do. And I cannot tell you the outpouring that comes back to me every single week that I do write from people who these messages are resonating with, because I'm not just talking about spaces in that blog. I'm also talking about that sanctuary lens through which we view the world. Gratitude is such a foundational practice of sanctuary because it really puts us in such a grounded and connected place. I think that's one of the things that's missing so much in our world today is connection with the earth, connection with ourselves, connection with each other, connection with the divine, all of it. And, it really, people want to read about that. People want to read about good things. They want a hopeful message. People want tools. right? I really think that they do. And so I really have ratcheted up our messaging since the beginning of the
I
pandemic.
love
And it
it.
is something that I am finding just even this week. The people that I'm interviewing with as potential design clients, the message is landing so much differently with them because they're ready. Finally, people are ready. I've been working on this for so long where people were just like, what? Sanctuary? What? Well-being in the
Yes.
home? Okay, maybe. But now it's like finally everything is gelling and really coming together. So, sanctuary is also an answer, I think, to how I'm viewing our spaces so differently. And I'm really sharing with clients and everyone who will listen to me, talk to them about it. When we view our spaces, whether it's our office or our home, even our car, as a sanctuary, it is a very different way to look at those spaces because instead of just being a place to park our car, put our groceries, take a shower, and go to bed, this is an ensouled environment that is here to nourish you and love you and embrace you and help you. Like this is a partner in your life that is really there, for you. And this is a place that you can go and be your truest, most authentic self. This is where the mask comes off. We really get to be our most genuine selves and get back in touch. It's like a portal where we go from being in the outside world to being in our inner world. And the purpose of it is not to have a beautiful space. It's nice to have a beautiful space.
Yeah.
The ultimate purpose, though, is to have this space that gives us access to the inside space, because where we want the true sanctuary is inside.
That's
Because
right.
when we have that inside, then that is what builds resilience. It's what allows us to deal with all the things. Life is going to do what life's going to do. It's going to bring us the things that it's going to bring. It's just how well poised are we to respond? And I'm convinced that when we move in that sanctuary way and have that landing pad for ourselves, it really helps us be more resilient, and it helps us have that fortitude inside to be able to respond in a way that we can be proud of. We respond with love, we respond with honor, we respond with grace to a world that is not always kind and loving back to us. But we can be that change,
You are on fire, girl. You are. You say I'm the energy, you're the energy as well. This is so amazing. And I think it's so complimentary because I've been spending so much time recently talking about health and health matters in various forums, right? And longevity comes up and all the things, right? The message that you're giving really underpinning this notion of design and life design.
Yeah.
And in particular, you talking about it can be your car, it can be your office, it can be all the things. What comes to mind for me is when we are really still,
Yeah.
we're capable of being our best selves because we are receiving all that we need to find joy in whatever the situation is,
It's
right?
true.
The scripture speaks about be still, right? And know that I am God. Um, so it takes the rush out of it, right? Because if my car is as much a sanctuary driving me to the meeting as
Mm-hmm.
my home was when I left, my relationship with who I am when I step out of the car
Yeah.
and my readiness for whatever I'm about to do,
Mm.
man, it's all aligned.
Right.
Sister, you got it. You figured that out. I love that.
Yeah,
And
it's good.
it's
It's
a
really good.
tool.
Thank you. I know. I love it so much. And, I really think that that very intentional approach to our surroundings
Yeah.
just makes all the difference because,
Intentional,
yeah,
intentional.
yeah, intention is the thing. It makes all the difference.
Mhm. Wow. Lisa, honestly, I feel like we could keep going, but there is so much goodness to unpack in just what we've talked about
Mhm.
that I think we let it breathe.
Yeah,
We circle back
yeah,
because I would imagine as folks begin to get acquainted with your work,
Yep.
and follow some of your writing and really start to explore the life
Mhm.
that they're building for themselves in
Exactly.
total,
Mhm.
sprinkled with design. I
Mhm.
know that we're going to have more things to talk about and consider. So
Oh, yeah.
I see you coming back. I see this
Oh,
being a
I would love
conversation,
to.
girl, and us just tackling some points together because,
Mhm.
I just love your joyful creativity.
Oh, thank you so much, Chandra.
Mhm. This has been a pleasure. I'll see you
Really
soon.
have. I look forward to it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.